Space Moose, where you can see the vintage sets from Classic Space LEGO series. Today I'm going to show you sets from year 1983. There was 5 basic sets and a few supplemental sets released that year. There was as well a few new parts which appeared in 1983, and I'll show you them. One of the new pieces was the opening box. It was big enough to fit some small equipment in. It was used in town sets as letterbox. It was also widely used in space sets. Another new part was minifig equipment like metal detector. It came in 2 colors, black and grey. Another new equipment was new type of blaster. Something like this. But more importantly, there was a new type of cockpit canopy for spaceships. It was using the hinge for vehicle roofs from town sets. And another novelty, I'll take it off from here, this type of support. It has height of 5 standard bricks, and this is the more massive version. The original one was 2 mm thinner, but obviously was not strong enough, and they introduced stronger version. But we have the original version on those sets. I'll show them closer into the camera in a moment. So I'm going to show you the sets in more detail, and as usual we'll start with the smallest sets. The smallest set on that year was set 6803, a small flying craft. It was very similar to set 885 from 1979, so you can treat it as a replacement for this after 4 years. The shape is almost identical. Instead of the slope with Classic Space logo, it has 2 yellow lights. The forward cannons look slightly stronger, equipped with the transparent pieces. There's different engines on the back, but still no seat for the pilot, so it couldn't be very comfortable craft. The next set is 6823, a small articulated rover on balloon tires which were introduced the previous year. It has the new box piece in the back, grips for 2 pieces of equipment, including the new metal detector, and not much more, and the yellow astronaut as the driver. Then we have slightly larger rover, 6844 if I remember correctly. It's also articulated. There's 2 boxes, 1 on each side, and it's a specialized rover. It has the movable arm with 2 metal detectors in the back, and also a large radar antenna on the thinner version of the support piece. So this vehicle must have been designed for mineral detection. Then we have 2 big sets. One of them is 6930, an excellent moon base. The piece count is surprisingly small. There was less than 200 pieces in it. I think it was 185 or something like that. But you have everything here. You have a base, which is a very interesting shape, 2 rovers, articulated one and a rigid one. You have 4 astronauts, 2 reds and 2 yellows. And the yellow astronauts, they are pilots for these small flying crafts, or you can use them as rotating turrets with cannons for base defense. The base is built on a crater plate, but it fits perfectly on a different base plate, like this one. This plate is from a fire station from town sets, but the distance between the supports is just right for this. And then you get space for 3 rovers, kind of car park. And another modification that I would recommend for this set, and which I use very often on LEGO shows, is putting this piece in the center of the base and having one of the turrets or flying craft, one on each side. Here there's space for the pilots to have some rest. You can see 2 seats, but no space for the air tanks. They have to take them off to fit into the seats, but there's no hangers or anything for them, like they used to be in previous base. But nevertheless, this was the first moon base in 2 years, because the previous one appeared in 1980. And finally, the biggest and most important set in that year, 6980. That was replacement. That was the new flagship replacement for the set 928, also from 1979. You can see it's huge by the standards in the early 80s. That was the first big spaceship with double cockpits fitted side by side. You have yellow astronauts as pilots. Interesting thing about this spaceship was that the forward section could be separated and used as independent flyer. The rear section was a kind of lander which could be dropped on a new planet, and the back can be open. And you can take out a kind of mobile laboratory. Inside you have a red astronaut operating some equipment. There was also 2 small rovers in that set, both driven by white astronauts. One of them was probably a kind of fuel tanker, because it had the flexible rubber hose. And another important thing that came with this set was the landing pad. And if I remember correctly, this was the last set to be equipped with this type of landing pad. And this set was the first space set with 5 minifigs. You had 2 white, 2 yellow and 1 red astronaut. Then there was supplemental set 6701. There was just 6 astronauts, 2 of each color. Each of them had a different piece of equipment. And what is interesting, the same year another supplemental set was released, set 6711, where there was only 4 astronauts. I think there was 2 white, 1 yellow and 1 red, and they had slightly different equipment with them. And the last set from 1983 that I'm going to show you is a bit weird because that set came as a merger of two earlier sets. If you remember from the previous episode, set 6880, a magnificent rover, and 1 year earlier there was set 6929, an excellent starship. And by joining two brilliant sets you would expect something extraordinary. But the result is, for me, was a little bit disappointing. I admit it is quite big for the year. But the shape is a little bit odd. You have too many pieces that just don't fit where they are. There are cool features as well. There is very cool rover with movable parts. One of them has the grip, the other one is digger bucket. And interestingly, the rover fits into the spaceship, so can be carried into wherever it's needed. But the problem is that this astronaut has to travel in open cockpit. And the other astronaut, the pilot of the craft, his cockpit is not airtight as well. You can hardly see him, but he is there. Oh. But he sits so low that he cannot actually see anything from the cockpit. Another weird thing is that there's big gaps at the bottom of the cockpit. And why was that? I can't understand, because the designer could have used one or both of those slopes, transparent or solid one, to close the gaps. And another thing that came in this set was this. It's hard to say what exactly it is. It looks like a cross between a rocket launcher and a fridge, maybe. And there's the movable arm with steering wheel or a valve or something like that. So a big piece count, because together there was over 300 pieces used in this, but the effect, in my opinion, more interesting is having those two instead of this combined one. So these were the sets, space sets available in 1983. In the next episode I'll show you sets from 1984.